And it was one Sunday night that I was sitting at the dinner table with my husband. And he told me, he goes, Suzanne, you know what? You'll be better off, honey, if you just get a job. My name is Susanne Mariga, and I am the Chief Accountant and Chief Profit Advisor here at Mariga CPA. Profit First is an amazing, amazing concept. And I really wish that they taught this in schools. I really wish that they taught Profit First in schools. And for me, I actually discovered Profit First completely by accident. You see, I started my business over 12 years ago. I had just had my little girl. I had just left my corporate job, and I was in love with accounting and taxes, right? Okay, I was a geek. I loved accounting and taxes. And I had this dream that I wanted to provide Big Four level accounting and tax services to small businesses in a way that they traditionally could not afford it. And what that meant was that I was going to super serve my clients. I was going to work really hard. And naturally, I thought, just like many of you business owners, that profits would just naturally follow, right? How many of us have grown up being taught that if we work really hard and we super serve, then naturally we'll get a reward, right? That naturally profits would follow. And I was no different than any other entrepreneurs. I really thought that if I worked hard, if I super served my clients, that profits would naturally follow. And I believe that, just like many entrepreneurs, right? What I found was, after 3 years of working in my business, and I mean working super hard, right? Because being a tax accountant is hard work, right? Being a tax accountant is hard work. And after 3 years of being in my business and working really hard, I found that I actually worked harder in my what I was doing in my corporate job. I worked harder working for myself than in my corporate job. And I found that I had no personal time for my family. And frankly, I had nothing to show for it, right? I had no profits. I had no pay. I had no retirement. And I had lots of corporate debt, which is really sad, right? Really sad. How many of you guys relate to that story, right? Isn't that the story of American entrepreneurship, unfortunately? And today we're going to change that. And it was one Sunday night that I was sitting at the dinner table with my husband. And he told me, he goes, Suzanne, you know what? You'll be better off, honey, if you just get a job. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. That broke my heart, right? Because how many of you guys, your business is your baby? My business was my baby, okay? It was the same age as my daughter. They were twins. They were born the same time. And my heart was broken. But he was absolutely right. He was absolutely right, because you see, at my last corporate job, I had more personal time, right? Because it was a large SEC company and I could share the workload with everyone. I had higher and definitely consistent pay, right? In a corporate job, they always pay you every 2 weeks. And I still had a lot of corporate opportunities, right? Recruiters were still calling me. And it wasn't until I started to align my intentions and really establish what was important to me that my actions began to align, and I actually began to live out the business that I truly wanted. And today I have the business of my dreams. And I want to teach each and every one of you how to use the Profit First cash management method so that you too can have the business of your dreams. So let's talk about it. Let's have a real conversation today. Why is profit so important? Why is profit so important? And it's important because profitability is the lifeline of your company, right? It's the lifeline of your company. It's the blood of your company. It's the existence of your company. It's how you are going to continue on, is if you have profits. And you need profits because you need profits in order to scale your business, right? In order to grow your business, to reinvest, to bring in those employees. Nobody's going to work for free except for you, right? That's what I learned. Nobody was going to work for free. And if you don't have profits, you're not going to be able to hire the best and the brightest, right? And so you're always going to stay on this proverbial hamster wheel. And so we need profits in order to scale our business. We also need profits because we have to build retained earnings, right? We have to build retained earnings. And we have to build retained earnings because we don't want to rely on debt when we make investments, when we make upgrades to our technology, right? We don't want to rely on debt. We want to be able to use those retained earnings to reinvest in our company to move our companies forward. Also, profitability is important because talk about unplanned emergencies. COVID-19 has been a shock, I think, for everyone. You know, we always thought that maybe there might be a dip, maybe there might be a hurricane, maybe there might be a one-time event that might last a week, but no one thought that we would have a pandemic that would have a year-long repercussion, right? Nobody thought that would happen. I'll be honest with you. that profitability, it's important because it helps you weather storms like COVID-19, right? Now, you guys heard of PPP loan, right? PPP loan. And you guys heard the stories of big companies applying for the small business PPP loan money, right? You guys heard of that. And they weren't applying for it because they thought it was fun. These big companies, these SEC companies were applying for PPP money because they needed the money, right? They needed the money. And this is not a small business problem. This is a big business problem also. It is a business problem in general. When we do not have profitability and we are not intentional about what we are doing, we are not able to manage the storms, right? We are not able to manage storms. And one of the things that I can say that I am really proud of today, and I have my team that's online with us, is that even with COVID-19, because of Profit First, we didn't have to lay off anybody. We did not have to lay off any jobs. We did not have to take any pay cut. And again, it was because of Profit First, right? It was because of Profit First, managing our cash, managing our retained earnings, controlling our debt. That is the reason why we were able to stay and weather the storms. Finally, profit is a reward. It's a reward for the job well done for you founders and you investors, for the ingenuity that you bring, for the talent that you bring up, for the opportunities that you give people that would not normally get a chance to. It is a reward for the job well done. You guys are the innovators. You are the creators of the iPhones. You guys make America what it is. And profits is literally just a reward for a job well done. So high five, you guys deserve it. Be proud of it. Don't hold yourselves in shame. Be proud of your profitability. Embrace it. And so my question is, if profitability is so important, right? If profitability is so important, and we see why, right? Why do so many small businesses fail? Why do so many small businesses fail? And in fact, the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics tells us that 20% of small businesses will fail in the first year. 20%. And then after 5 years, only half will be left standing. And then after 10 years, the survival rate tanks to 35%. And so profit is so important. Why do so many small businesses fail? And I have some good news. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. We are simply biologically and psychologically wired to build businesses that fail. We are trained in the manner of how we behave. For example, I went to business school. I'm a CPA. And one of the first things that they taught me in my accounting 101 class as a first year accounting major was revenue minus expenses equals profit, right? How many of you guys learned this equation in school? Revenue minus expenses equals profit or income, right? And we were taught this. This is US GAAP, right? Lisa, you were taught it. Awesome. This is US GAAP, right? This is US GAAP. And what it teaches our entrepreneurs is if you focus on sales, you sell to anybody, you sell as much as you can, and you sell as much as you can, sell to anybody, right? Anybody that'll breathe and buy it, right? That's what we're taught. And then we're responsible, right? We are responsible business owners. We pay off our debt. We pay off our expenses, right? Then naturally, right, we're taught that profit will follow, right? That's what we're taught, that naturally profit will be a natural byfactor of everything that we do. Well, unfortunately, what I find as a CPA that practices, that works with hundreds of small businesses every year is when you focus on this equation, when you focus on sales and you sell to anybody, drop your prices, whatever you need to do to sell, cover your expenses, profit is literally exactly that. It's whatever is left over. And usually that's exactly it. It's nothing left over, right? It's a surprise that you get at the end of the year when you get your tax return done by your accountant, right? It's what's left over. It's like, my accountant telling me this is the amount that's left over. And geez, I wish I knew where that cash went, right? That is exactly what this is. And literally, it's not until you get intentional that things change. The problem's also biological, right? The problem is also biological. In fact, Parkinson's law teaches us that our demand for a resource increases to meet the supply of it, right? You guys heard of it in the economics. Our demand increases as a supply, right? And I love Mike Michalowicz's book because he gives the example of dieting, right? And I'm guilty. I've been on a few diets in my lifetime. Who hasn't been on a diet, right? And one of the first things that they teach you is that when you go on a diet, the first thing they teach you is use smaller plates, right? Use smaller plates, right? Because if you use smaller plates, you're going to have portion control. And it's similarly like if I go to a buffet, Golden Corral, right? Golden Corral, kids love that. And they have these huge plates, right? And not only do they have huge plates, but they have mountains of plates, right? And it's all for you if you want to use them, right? And you can go to Golden Corral and you can use this really large plate and you can heap it up. You can actually go on second and you're going to eat a whole lot, right? Compared to if you went to an hors d'oeuvre dinner, right? An hors d'oeuvre dinner for business. Let's say you're in a tight suit, your buttons might bust, right? And your plate is teeny, right? You're going to eat a whole lot different than if you went to Golden Corral at the buffet, right? All because of the plate size, all because of the portions, all because of what's available. And I bet that if you go to the hors d'oeuvre dinner, you're going to eat less and you're going to still feel just as great and probably better actually than if you went to Golden Corral. And this is the same way in business. This is the same way in business. In business, when 6 months ago, when the economy was great, when cash was just flowing, my business owners were asking me things like, Susanne, should I go ahead and buy this corporate car? You know, I really want to travel to this exotic place because I heard that I can get a write-off if I take a training, right? That's one of the questions. The other thing they would ask me is, you know what? I found this beautiful office place in this wonderful part of town, and I think that I might just grow into it one day. In contrast, today, they're asking me questions that are very different. They're asking me questions that are based upon scarcity. They're asking me questions like, okay, what can I cut in my business today so that I can make sure that my business can continue? Which loyal employee should I keep? And heck, Suzanne, what government subsidies are out there right now? These are the questions that entrepreneurs are asking today. And again, it's Parkinson's law. When there was plenty, their mindset was different. And when there's few, their mindset is now focused on scarcity and survival. And that's exactly how our minds work. And that's how our businesses work. And so the question is, what happens when you decide to work with your natural psychological and biological makeup? What happens if you say, you know what, I'm not going to fight against who I am? What happens if I work with my natural psychological and biological makeup? What happens if I decide to take this accounting equation right here, this revenue minus expenses equals profit, and I say, hey, Suzanne, you know what? That's just not working for me. That's not working for me. I'm scratching it out. I'm changing my ways. This is not working for me. Put an X on it. What happens if I decide to work with my natural, psychological, biological makeup and I decide to take my profit first? You guys got that. I'm going to go ahead and take my profit first. My revenue less my expenses, or my revenue less my profit is, and whatever's left over, that's all that I have left for my expenses, right? I'm going to take my profit first. And first of all, I want to point out that Profit First, it's not an accounting system. It is not an accounting system. It is a cash management system. And this is a system that was designed by Mike Michalowicz that's illustrated in his book. Now, in Mike's book, one of the things that he did was he did a study of what healthy companies look like. And I'm actually going to go ahead and share my screen with you right now. Here is from the study from Profit First. So Mike Michalowicz did this study as well as some of his team members in Profit First Corporation. And these are what we call common size financial statements. So common size financial statements, what they mean is that instead of comparing companies based upon their revenue, we compare companies based upon a percentage of their revenue. So in the case of a small company here, you can see that 5% of his total revenue is going towards profit, 50% is going towards owner's pay, 15% is going towards tax, and 30% is going towards operating expenses. Now, as he gets bigger, right, as he grows, the owner takes less and less salary, right? And he's taking less and less salary because now he is relying on the power of his team. He is scaling, right? He is scaling. And so what that means is his operating expenses have gone up, but by the time he gets to be a $10 million company, he is now more so just an investor in the company, right? And I saw we got some Texas folks here, you know, and you guys may know Mattress Mac. He probably isn't on the floor anymore selling mattresses. He's literally a brand. And if you think about our president, right, he's not working the hotels anymore, but he is now just the name of the brand, right? And as your company grows, you're going to be shifting more in that direction, right? Because as you grow, you have to rely more on the power of the team. Now, when he is really small and he's under $250,000 in revenue, this man is his business, right? He is the salesman, he is the janitor, he is the accountant, he is everything, right? Because at $250,000, you can't really support a whole lot of employees, right? He is doing every single thing. And so he's compensated with pretty much 70% of the revenue, right? He gets 5% for profit, 50% for owner's pay, and then 15% is going to go towards tax. And just 30% is going to be left over for operating expenses. One of the things I want to point out is in Profit First, we believe the company pays your taxes, right? And so we actually set aside a percentage of the revenue to go towards taxes. And so again, 5% of the revenue is going towards profit, 50% is going towards owner's pay, 15% is going to tax, and literally 30% is all that's left over to go towards operating expenses. And so kind of like what I talked about in dieting, we have a dieting situation here. We have now created small plates for your business, right? We've created a plate for profit, a plate for owner's pay, a plate for tax, a plate for owner's operating expenses, and literally everything that's left in this plate, this 30%, that's all that you get for operating expenses. It's very similar to Dave Ramsey. And Dave Ramsey and his system, he has these envelope systems on the personal side, right? You have an envelope for movie night, you have an envelope for groceries, you have envelope for savings. Well, in business, we're going to be using bank accounts for our envelope systems is what we're going to do. And what's going to happen is all throughout the month, you're going to be collecting money into this income bank account, this revenue bank account. So money is going to come into this revenue bank account. And then on the 10th and 25th of the month, you are going to then transfer money into the other plates, so the other bank accounts. So you're going to transfer, in this case, 5% to profit, 50% to owner's pay, 15% to tax, and 30% to operating expense. We've created, instead of envelopes, we created bank accounts. So on the 10th and 25th, we are going to transfer to the account based upon the designated percentages. And you may start off at this if you're already there. I think I saw someone that they're already doing a profit assessment. As your business starts to accumulate this money, it goes into these different buckets. So in effect, you are now working with Parkinson's law. You're working with your natural biological, psychological response because you are creating small plates. You are no longer in the golden corral. You are now at the hors d'oeuvre dinner. And these bank accounts are set up to act that way for you. And so literally by putting these monies into this bank account, we are now creating this illusion of scarcity, right? We're creating this illusion of scarcity where our money, as soon as we get it, goes into the bank account based upon its designated purpose, right? And for some of you guys, and for all of us, actually, we're going to have to make some hard decisions, right? This is not going to be an overnight decision. And I'll be honest with you, for most people that are actually implementing Profit First, this is not an overnight thing. Most people are implementing it usually over an 18 months or a year session. So a year to 18 months. And the reason why is they're going to have to make some really hard decisions. For example, for some of you, it's going to mean having to look around you and go, what do I have? What am I paying for that just no longer serves me, right? What no longer serves me? What have I grown out of? And that can mean potentially looking at long-term vendor relationships. Maybe you have a great vendor that stops by your office every single week, but maybe this relationship is no longer ideal, right? Maybe this relationship is no longer ideal. Maybe you're on an insurance plan and it just keeps gradually going up, but you really like your insurance provider. But maybe it's time to go ahead and start getting other quotes, looking at, are there ways of being able to reduce my expenses if I get competitive bidding? And maybe these prior historical relationships that you had with your vendors no longer are the best deals that are on market. And so it means taking a look at that. Now, some of you guys have team members that have been with you from the beginning. And sometimes these team members, no matter how lovable they are, how long they've been with us and how loyal they've been, they are no longer able to keep up with your business. They are no longer able to keep up with your business. Either they have reached the end of their talent, they don't have the innate skills to go with you to your next level. Sometimes we outgrow the people that we start with, right? Sometimes we outgrow the team that we began with. And so for some of you guys, you're going to have to take that step back and you're going to have to decide, is it going to be the same team that brought me here? Is that going to be the same team that's going to bring me to my next level? Now, some of you guys are on long-term contracts, right? I think a good example is what we're seeing in the COVID-19 world. And especially with long-term leases and office spaces and things like that. I'm seeing copier leases, I'm seeing real estate leases, commercial real estate leases. And now if you're finding yourself migrating to a remote environment, like a lot of us are, right? I know, especially in Texas, we've kind of had the transition. I think Florida, I heard that you guys are having to transition over too. If you're having to transition into a remote environment, that long-term lease is no longer servicing you, right? It's no longer helping you. And it's an expense that is no longer helping you. And so now you're going to have to take a step back and you're going to have to go, I need to create a plan. I need to create a plan to gracefully exit from this long-term lease. I need to create a plan to exit from this and not be able to carry this because it no longer serves me. It no longer serves me in the COVID-19 world. And I have good news for you. Because good news in that it's not an overnight decision. This is not an overnight decision for you. And like I said, most of my clients, it takes them a year to 18 months to make these decisions. And I recommend that you focus on gradual changes. Look at it as a journey of a marathon instead of a sprint. Yes, Willie, you're learning that this year. I think a lot of businesses are learning that this year. And if you're up for renewal, this is a great time to think about how you're going to get out of there. Look at it as a journey instead of a marathon, right? Or a journey of a marathon instead of a sprint. So look at it as a marathon instead of a sprint. And And I often tell my clients that if I told you that tomorrow we're going to run a marathon, and we're going to practice the entire marathon today because I want to make sure you made it, I bet that most of you guys would not come back tomorrow. But if I said, you know what, we're going to run a marathon, but we're going to run it in a year from now, 12 months from now. And today we're just going to walk a mile. We're just going to walk one single mile today. And then the next day we're going to walk 2 miles. And then the next day we're going to walk 3. And then we're going to run a mile on the 4th day, and we're going to gradually build up, right? We're going to gradually build up. Then in a year from now, you're going to be successful when you run that marathon. You're going to be successful when you run the marathon. And it's the same way with Profit First. If you make small steps and you make small intentional steps with a lot of thought, gradual steps over time, you will gradually build up the stamina that you need in order to be successful. So small, gradual changes equal success and Profit First. Don't overwhelm yourself. Small, gradual changes. So I got some homework today for you guys. I got some homework because I don't believe in procrastinating. I believe in we just get started, right? We just get started. And I know that this is COVID-19 world. And so a lot of you guys, you're not going to be able to walk into the bank anymore. You're actually going to have to call the bank, or you're going to have to make an appointment to see the bank. But I want you to go ahead today and make those first steps to set up those 5 bank accounts. I want you to set up a revenue account, a profit account, an owner's pay account, a tax account, and an operating expense. So that's a revenue account, a profit account, owner's pay account, tax account, and operating expense account. And I want you to take 1% of all of your collections, every single one of your collections, and I want you to move it into your profit account on the 10th and 25th of the month. So that's our homework today. Go ahead and contact your banker, find out what they need from you in order to set up the bank accounts, whether you can do it in person or if you can do it online. Start with 1% of your real revenue is what we're going to do for the profit account. So we need to have a revenue account. That revenue account is going to be where all of the money, the proceeds are coming into, right? I recommend that be a checking account, right? A checking account. That way, when you make the disbursements into the other bank accounts, that you're not, a lot of the times the banks will give you a transaction fee if you exceed the number of transactions. So I recommend that be a checking account. The profit account, you'll probably want that to be a savings account. The owner's pay account, you'll probably want that to be savings. Tax, you'll probably want that to be savings and OpEx because you're going to be spending from that. You're going to want that to be a checking account. So hopefully that helps. If you have an existing checking and savings account, I would say convert one of the checking accounts to your OpEx account or to your income account, and a savings account can be one of your profit accounts, and that way you only have to set up 3 more accounts. Now, I would say with that, if you have merchant services, because some of you guys might have merchant services that are already there, you're going to want to make sure that you probably keep that account the same, right? Because it's dealing with a third party and you have to switch things around. So if you've got merchant services in one account that's a checking account, you probably want to make sure that becomes your revenue account. At this point, a revenue account, a profit account, owner's pay account, tax, and operating expense. You can do this. This is the beginning. You are on the foot of the mountain. Welcome to Profit First.